Social Changes. Chapter 3. Good Parenting. Good parenting stimulates and develops the child's natural growth. The child will absorb, to an extent, the parent's social preferences and communication skills. It's clear that the higher the form in matters of aesthetic taste, appreciation of nature, levels of knowledge, etc., controlling dexterity and social interaction, the better off the child is likely to be. This may not show itself in early life, but emerge later on. Children need to be happy and be at one with their environment, able to cope with their normal day-to-day life and be socialized by feeling safe, free and accepted. This gives them confidence to accept different environments, unusual tasks, new relationships and greater challenges. Children are born with brains that are structured, the organism's genes, and these direct, innate, evolutionary, personal characteristics which have some effect on development and interpersonal relationships. This model is challenged by genes needing an external and internal stimulus, or signal, parental birth period, in order to influence bodily functions. There is still much work needed on the human genome before interventions are developed. However, the development does affect behaviour, and changing behaviour patterns can change habits and traits. The child's behaviour is also in part determined by its bodily makeup, hereditary factors. A child in a stressful situation naturally looks upon its mother for safety. This attachment, first developed by breastfeeding, creates a bonding which should be a natural response. If this bonding is not present, it creates tension, affecting intellectual development. If this continues, psychosomatic disorders may surface, and later still, depression. The child's innate development in normal circumstances moves to forming relationships and to deal with emotions. It's argued that the level of social class determines acceptance or non-acceptance of education practices and the environment it's finding itself in. The working class pursues a natural growth rate, whilst the upper class, questioning limiting factors, seeks a higher growth rate. The former is non-stressful and unconfrontational. The child grows at its own pace. The latter, stressful and demanding, pushing forward, the child is urged to do more. The range of complexities of individual differences in parenting is many and varied. Parents should agree to the direction they wish their child to take regarding good behaviour, to ensure social inclusion in the wider sense, neighbourhood, school and out-of-school societies. All individuals require both features for balance. It is a question of when to apply which method, natural evolutionary growth or forced application. The latter is dissatisfied with the way things are, voices its displeasure, rather than the former, who takes it upon the chin and puts up with mediocrity and kowtows to bullying. A happy child doesn't lose its temper or throw tantrums. It's eager to learn and experience new things and will delight in building and shaping natural objects. They will soon show the parent how they can master a problem and show pleasure when a problem has been solved. Creating a happy atmosphere is the parent's chief goal, knowing that more learning will be achieved by its formation. Successful parenting requires some understanding of how their child is being affected by everyday events, making sure the happy, joyous things are repeated to reinforce positive accomplishments. Your caring, parental attitude will achieve far more than giving in to moments of frustration and abruptness. The act of doing things together is more important than tasks acted on alone, even if it is only for a limited period. Children like to show what they can do. Your praise ensures a repeat performance, not in a boastful way, but proof of success. Every task you perform together with your child teaches sharing, and those lighter moments in between, playtimes, teach reliance. All teaching, training, playing needs structure to get the most out of them. Structure has a beginning, the introduction, a middle, the main task, and an end, the completion. Each part has a form, the necessary steps to build a complicated act, and each act becomes a guide to satisfaction. Job satisfaction leads to happiness and a will to improve, steps that leads to self-reliance, self-control, and self-motivation. One of the most important tasks for the parent is to ensure that their child has confidence, promoting a good image of self, a concept which includes identity and self-esteem. Try to only involve your child in achievable tasks that will result, with patience and persistence, in successful completion, ensuring a job well done that warrants praise, which is your reward. Try not to allow tasks to be too complicated or too large so that they remain unfinished or shoddily done. There's no benefit whatsoever in congratulations for poor unfinished work, so try to make sure it doesn't happen. Be respectful of your child's opinion. Be consistent and fair, making sure your partner holds the same opinions as yourself regarding what is allowed and what isn't. Child development. If a parent questions whether they are doing the right thing or not, their solution should be compared to the subject's highest form. What is morally, physically, and mentally best? There has to be a certain amount of risk-taking that offers the child a value of self-preservation. Problem-solving has to include an element of reaching out to find a conclusion. Social interaction needs a degree of imagination, placing oneself in somebody else's position to make the best appreciation possible. Young children's development can be improved by structured stimulation, increasing levels of difficulty, and this can be judged by the amount of physical activity and degree of concentration shown by the child. Learning language begins before the spoken word. Speech acquisition is promoted by activity from the parents, particularly the mother, and this must be continually stimulated. Introducing play individually and in a group involves the socialization through relationships. Try and give your child a varied set of experiences inside and outside the home. The child must be encouraged to become self-reliant, confident, and independent, allowed to be left to its own resources and to take the initiative. Exploring new territory using different shaped items, allowed to be noisy, all teach early responsibility and therefore continually encouraged. Children should be stimulated to be active and not lazy. Find pleasure in completing a task by the reward it is given, even if it's just a slap on the back and to be told they've done well. Children progress differently, even within the same age range. A child born prematurely, a few days before expected, usually is more active than a child born late. This is not just because the premature child is lighter or that the late arrival is fatter. It is a matter of reflexes, the activity of the early arrival. Other than sight, the child's primitive reflexes are begun inside the mother's womb. Teaching the child inferior tasks teaching poor language skills and giving harmful experiences will not give the child a good start to its life. If you're going to take the trouble to have a child, have the expense, and engage in physical pain, give your child a good start. Make sure you engage your partner by talking through the lifelong tasks that you are taking on. If you take the right first steps and give it your best shot, you'll be recompensed many times over. Only the best is good enough. You need to take control of yourself as much as controlling your child. No one said bringing up a child is easy. Pursuing tasks to be completed that are beyond the child's capabilities creates stress. If the child continually fails to live up to parents' expectations, if badgering and nagging is used to browbeat, show up and oppress, psychological disturbances will be the result. Children should be given tasks that can be achieved by a limited amount of perseverance and dedication, only so far as to eventually achieve success. All completed tasks immediately praised, and extra effort rewarded by a daily treat. The highest goal in all matters is to seek enlightenment, wisdom, to pursue what is beautiful and good. Sometimes to pursue a higher level is required. It requires a different path. It's good because it develops an open mind. There are many different paths. The fact that you are seeking another way shows flexibility and perseverance, and that you are stopping or hesitating to allow a chance to reevaluate, to reform, approach the subject from another direction. It is a proven fact that too much television or playing too long at computer games harms normal vision, physical fitness, mental capacity, and question solving and structured learning. Revert to solving the problem or amusing yourself by engaging in imaginative play. Developing your child. Children are born with an accumulation of innate structures, programmed genes. These structures are developed through experiences. These experiences can be increased by stimuli, learning new tasks, and changing the child's environment. The mother is the most important factor in the child's early life. It is through her that the baby learns attachment when feeding, bonding. Those children deprived of this natural bonding become detached. Their development is slowed down, they become aggressive, and eventually they become depressed. Controlling behaviour. Controlled behaviour is essential for good social integration and the pursuit of excellence. It is also a means whereby mental and physical space is given to a problem, to allow a rational assessment of each and every action, rather than plunge in and create waves, disturbances. In a child's early years, their store of experiences, understanding, rationalization, and knowledge has not been built up or shaped. Their children are but putty in the hands of parents and educators. Putty, unfortunately, if left too long, loses its plasticity and goes hard. Eventually it will never be softened again, but break up into little pieces. And human beings are exactly the same. Parents should take advantage of the early stages to shape their child in the best way they can, to remove their child away from those things which are harmful in mind and body. And if they do that, promoting good behaviour, tolerance, knowledge, and a healthy body, they are doing the best they can for their child. No parent can say they do not know the difference or hide behind social indifference and the lowest common denominator, which is popular demand. If you're trying to teach your best, to teach your child good behaviour and direct your child towards structured learning, you would be setting back your achievements by allowing your child to play with a badly behaved neighbour's child, or a neighbouring child who is playing outside all the time. You cannot allow yourself to be sidetracked or to take the easy path. Children need to be directed by a delicately controlling hand all the time, and that is why the close period, from birth to 3 or 4, is essential time to set the foundation for the future. Most parents are keen to enroll their child in the local kindergarten or play school. There, the carers or teachers point the child in certain directions and introduce the start of structured learning, which builds up on the child's previous experiences. The educators understand that not all children have similar capabilities, that damage can be done if the pressure on slow learners is forced. And that is why it's so important to have a sympathetic and patient teacher. For those children underachieving, a special learning situation should be planned with longer one-to-one tuition times slotted in. This doesn't mean that the slow learner will not catch up, for that is far from the truth. What it does mean, however, is that greater care has to be taken. It's in the training, the learning environment, that good habits are introduced and reinforced that will stand the child in good stead and be a good basis for future educators to build upon. Most parents understand that it is this interaction between child and tutor, based upon good positive experiences, that last forever if gently guided and nurtured. And one of the true indicators for good learning is activity. Children who are advanced in sitting and standing, constructive play and movement are generally advanced in speaking, repeating and answering, and these shouldn't be forced responses but gently coaxed and rewarded by your pleasure. Reasonableness. The concept of reasonableness is not a shared one, nor is the concept static, for what is reasonable one moment is not at another. Knowing a bit more about your partner is a good thing, and talking through these variables does help. Listening to each other's points of view is always beneficial, especially if the view alters a perspective. The idea of a questionnaire seems like a good one. With that in mind, I've set out some everyday problems to think about, to be taken as mental preparation before filling in the questionnaire. Neither the prompts nor the questionnaire have been devised as anything other than a helpful guide, and to offer a set of suggestions. The extended family. If the family is the nation's bedrock, the extended family must be its core, and this is the same in all societies. The family can be defined as the parents, guardian or responsible adult, plus a child, and this is a social group, and this nuclear group can be extended by a grandparent, relatives or friends living in close proximity or bound by frequent occasion, and this is the extended family. Parenting involves care, concern, security and guidance, and these acts of love are bonding features begun when the child is first born and goes forward in confidence building and close association. all in turn provide a good foundation for education to play its part towards making a rounded, intelligent individual child. Socialization. To ensure a good start in life, the parent should include the child with everyday events and issues of the day and home in a happy, responsive way, keeping the child close at all times. Now this is called the happy partnership, and these early close period days should last for a period of at least 4 to 5 years. Babies respond to even-tempered voices, particularly the mothers. Lullabies, nursery rhymes, songs, and softly played music all play a part. Children thrive on being cuddled, stroked, and held close. The mother is the closest, the dearest, and the most longed-for companion. The mother's face, smell, and touch are important. Increasingly, parents return to work within shorter periods after the birth. They, and particularly the mother, are giving this most important period over to somebody else, a time when the mother should be at home, watching their child grow up. It doesn't take a psychologist or social worker to spell out the importance of this period, and if you doubt their wisdom, read any autobiography and you will appreciate how the role of the mother dominates the well-being of the child. Of course, not all mothers are good and kind, and some appreciate that their frustrations and weaknesses might interfere with a child's growth. And you might say that in such a case the woman should not have a child in the first place, but that would be unrealistic. People are not saints. Children of such parents should be in the hands of someone who is prepared to spend time looking after them. And such mothers are rare. Most understand that this early period in a child's life is more important than any other. It's an introduction into the child's immediate surroundings and wider world. Socialization with siblings and members of the extended family are to be introduced gently, to build upon the close period, the parents keeping in attendance to ensure safety. These are the child's first steps towards sharing, adapting, and compensating for the action of others, to enable the child to fit in and become part of humanity. The act of socialization is not just about the nuclear or extended family, it's about the child's connection to all other people. And this is extremely important in life. It makes the individual able to communicate and relate to others, not in a forced, unnatural way, but by being at ease, friendly, and companionable. Naturally, the first person to be related to is the child's mother, surrounding family, first friends, neighbours, and playmates. It is with these close companions that your child will grow up with. He will take on their language, culture, habits, and social skills, and it's for you to make sure your child is surrounded by children and adults whom you know he is safe with, that they have good habits, kind thoughts, and gentle spirits. Don't you believe that by introducing your child to loud, rough, aggressive, and unkind children, your child will learn to stand up for itself? Shouting, screaming, and pushing youngsters are upsetting, and this is the last thing you want your child to copy. Don't you allow your child to smother, clasp, and pull other children to get their attention. It's being a good playmate. Those others will want to play and be friends with your child. It's also not by force, having your own way, demanding and seeking attention, or by claiming the best and most popular toy. It's by sharing. It is the natural way of mother-child touching, cooing, smiling that stimulates the child to kick out in pleasure. He will pucker up his face, shake his head, and make faces, trying to emulate your gestures, gurgling and crying out to copy your words and sounds. You must be on hand to keep him safe, removing dangerous objects, guiding his play by emphasizing the importance of controlled movement, keeping him interested, giving him a new challenge and experiences. Keep up the daily routine of breastfeeding, resting, playing, sleeping and changing his nappy, and eventually self-feeding and potty training. You will be grateful that you stuck to the daily round that has evolved from his first few weeks. They will change quite naturally as each skill is extended towards taking just a little longer to perform and perfect, whilst you both relate to his changing world. You too will garner satisfaction from stroking his head as he feeds, washing him in his bath, patting him dry and cuddling him in a warm towel. Then you can sit together and watch the clouds pass by, the leaves fall from the trees, and listen to the wood pigeons on the slatted roof. Taking the child to a communal playground and recreation ground presents the larger society outside the home. Swimming classes are a way to involve other children in group activity that teaches a beneficial skill, and this involves fun and games in a controlled setting. Both are an introduction to formal classes at school, and within the first 5 years the child is introduced into society, coming safely into contact with others in a secure environment. These are the most important years to instill self-worth, so that the child is confident in its own abilities, not in a manner to better anyone or to put someone down, but to become sufficiently confident that they can cope with other children's behaviour, their peers' difficulties, their successes and aggressiveness and pride. Teaching a child to accept these behavioural patterns in others is what socialization is all about, and can only be done by the child being confident in its own abilities first, which is why the close period is so important. The unsocial behaviour in others needs careful explanation, not to make the child feel superior, but caring and concerned with another's plight, suffering and problems. Showing a caring attitude towards others is the mark of good behaviour, and this is appreciated by all, exhibited by concern, not by nosiness, breaching another's privacy. However, this is all easier said than done. The parent needs to be open-minded, knowledgeable, caring, to recognize another's antisocial mannerisms, vices, language and intent, to steer their child in such a way that they can appreciate there is another path, and to make life enjoyable, successful and productive. And this should be not done in a self-satisfied way, but with humility and concern. If these guidelines are followed, a successful start to a child's early life would be assured. However, a successful outcome relies upon the parent to make each step fun without any stress, and this all requires a great deal of forward planning and effort. It's a relatively new understanding that fathers play a significant role in a child's early life. The authorities figure appears to reduce early sexual activity by both sexes, increases the age of the first childbirth, improves standards of living, reduces family stress, and increases school qualifications. In cases where the father is removed, there are a number of negative outcomes, the opposite of the given list above. Socialization has been defined as understanding the attitudes, values, and behavior patterns so that an individual can fit into the society, group, or workplace. Occupational identity affects young people greatly. They have to come to terms with so much in a short space of time. There is a gradual work up to the young person's introduction to work, which starts in the home, school, and media. The young person hears from his parents about their work, and with any luck he may try a part-time job or be fitted into a work experience scheme. There he will observe others and hear their problems and worries, and one of the greatest forces that motivate, direct, and act as a sounding board are his friends. Their values, aspirations, and experiences are important. The young person's motivation may be influenced by the wage he will get, and perhaps the job's prestige amongst his friends, its advancement opportunities, and even security will play a part. His parents may have longer-term thoughts about the job's pension, useful skills training, and sick care arrangements. What will have the longer-term influence will be the family repeated value drummed in over a number of years. The importance of the job's future worthwhileness, durability, the necessity to work hard and to obtain skill that can be passed on to other working arrangements. There are two main forces that affect motivation. The intrinsic, which is concerned with creativity, one's interests, whether art or science-based, self-directing and responsibility, and ability-based, whether practical and hands-on. Language. Children copy adults. Your behaviour in action, word and deed has to be as perfect as possible. Your language should be quietly firm, unchallenging and fair, enunciating clearly and concisely, using a neutral intonation, applying good English, free from slang and sloppy phrasing. How could you possibly expect your child to talk well if you don't? Being able to spell the word enables a proper enunciation to be applied, and this is important for the mother tongue, and even more so if you are studying a foreign language. One of the most upsetting events in anyone's life is not being liked, being ostracized and unwanted. This deprivation may be caused by bad early socialization, the child refusing to share, not allowing another to join in, being unfriendly, threatening, shouting, or too familiar. We all want our child to be liked, respected, valued, and wanted. Whoever said parenting was easy? For it requires time, effort, patience, and fortitude, and knowing what is good parenting doesn't help, even though it's not always followed. Before starting a family, discuss with your partner what you are going to do to ensure your child has a good start. Read about what psychologists know about human behaviour and follow their advice. You wanted your child, so pass that feeling on and make him feel wanted too, loved, secured and valued. He didn't ask to be brought into the world after all. Fathering. Past civilizations believed that man had the right to be head of the household or family, chief of the clan, tribe leader, king of state, and high king of the civilization or race. The law of hereditary, property, and land rights were written in the name of the legal right of man. Gradually, This has changed. Muscular strength, leadership in battle, maker of laws, and the divine right of kings changed by acts of law and equal rights. The power of education has complemented these changes in law. Men have had their power stripped away from them mainly by the change in property rights and the laws of divorce. Inheritance tax has played a part too, as his powers have withered away and been taken away and given up. Men's control, power and position have grown weaker. In many respects, the power of the sexes is equal, although concerning young children, women still maintain public regard for the mothering role. Men had greater social responsibility as the wage earner. He appended his signature to legal documents, could own property, was better educated, and voted at elections. The eldest carried the name forward to become head of the family, and his name appeared on the property title. What the father did and said was accepted as the way. There were neither female apprentices nor trainees. Commerce and industry only employed men in positions of responsibility. When women were employed for menial tasks as servants, maids, some labouring jobs, lesser office work and factory employment, their wage rates were half that of men in similar positions. Fathers dictated moral standards and declared the family's social position. They were the backbone of that society's hierarchy and tribal power. Men's superior social position started to change with the Industrial Revolution, about the middle of the 19th century. A little later, the education of the masses ensured girls would receive some sort of education that would eventually prepare them for jobs that are more responsible. The Crimea War and the two Boer Wars exposed the population's poor health. Various considerations were made to correct this: better education and school meals. And by the time these educational and welfare changes had raised the population expectations and the First World War over a period of 10 years, women had shown that they were capable of many jobs that one time were reserved for men. Although the mass unemployment of the 20s set back the advance of women's rights, they quickly resumed their one-time position 20 years later, especially during the time of total war. And by the 1950s it was expected that girls were to become employed. When starting a family, they stopped full-time employment, many for good. A further 20 years, it was expected that mothers resumed their work when their child reached the age of 5, started full-time education. And this change in social structure only took 50 years, a generation, to alter what had been an accepted social right since Neolithic man and beyond. The role of men in the 21st century is now the weakest it has ever been. Parental rights, family ties, and the kingdom's hierarchy, once supreme, was now questioned, reduced, and stripped away. Much of this power was to do with wealth, the control of money, to support the many by the few. Largely men have given up their powers by society's call for reasonableness, fairness, equality, and just rights. You might think that the power between men and women is now equal, but that wouldn't be so. Nevertheless, it's far closer than it ever was and has been, and depends on the circumstances. In business, it's still natural to address official documents to the male of the household. When a decision is required concerning children, then the mother's opinion is paramount, especially concerning custody and maintaining the child's home. Fathers play an important part in a child's development. It's little wonder that the good relationship of the father to the mother contributes to the pre-birth attachment of the child to its parents. This positive caring attitude continues after birth by the father bathing, feeding and cradling, all of which contributes to close attachment, a period necessary to a good father-child association. Fathers should communicate through storytelling, nursery play and conversation to demonstrate care, understanding and tolerance. It's about showing interest, that the child counts, is important to those around him. It's necessary to let the child know that it is wanted and needed, and this generates in the child respect for the father and stimulates the wish to please, which in turn reinforces stability and security. The father should never compare one child against the next. All these factors give lifelong support and contribute towards good growth, giving discipline, direction and instruction. Mothering. British society during the early 19th century considered girls to be future mothers. Mrs. Beeton, 1837 to 1865, wrote books on household management, sanitary, medical and legal matters to do with the home, was an authority on the role of women. The Forster Act of 1870 dealt with education in Britain, which was the start to Britain's educational needs. Girls, well into the 20th century, were considered fitted only for a limited education, to pass on information and learning to their children. It was thought by society that the habits and routines of the home, motherhood, was a natural, God-given evolutionary event, making expensive education and training unnecessary, even wasteful. And what was needed was for the mother, close female relatives, midwives and wet nurses to pass on how to run a home and cater for children. For the better educated, there was Mrs. Beeton. Society, even in these liberated times, considered girls as future mothers. Who else, indeed? And this suggests that women have as their chief interest the home, and all those things that go on in it. If this cannot be a statement for all a woman's life, then it should certainly be for that period before, during and after birth. It was considered unnecessary to waste money to educate girls who wouldn't be able to use their extra knowledge. Either daughters were expected to marry or to stay at home and look after the elderly parents. It wasn't considered sensible or rational to pass on the property, title, or the bulk of the estate out of the family. The eldest son was expected to look after unmarried women, and the married daughters were the property of their husbands, relieving the estate of that drain upon its wealth. This state of affairs continued until the mid-19th century, and even then hardly changes until well into the 20th. Women, particularly young mothers, were considered the gentler sex. The act of pregnancy, carrying the child, breastfeeding and nurturing thought natural, unselfish, pure, blessed by the Church and the State. Society, men, welcomed this state of affairs as unthreatening, subservient, convenient, and therefore they protected the image, defending the future generation. Many habits, routines, rules of law, and social etiquette attach itself to this image of women. In many ways it suited women to perpetuate this, and when making a living required hard manual work. However, as soon as more jobs became available that didn't require strength but dexterity and orderliness, women could see that here was a chance to extend their horizons. And this they have been doing ever since, and it could be argued that society has benefited. Women were considered home builders, bearers of the coming generation, and child rearers. If babies and young children required looking after, it was natural for the state to look to women to do it. Custody of the young followed divorce laws, and settlements, handing over the job to the separated mothers who naturally needed paying. The state has now elevated women to the role of child protectors, particularly of babies, preschool children, and children in the closed period under 5, or birth to 3. This custody can extend to children going to secondary schools under 15. State education doesn't separate girls from boys, but declares all children must be educated to the same level throughout school life, till 18, and beyond, if felt fitting. Child development. All childcare authorities consider the women's role indispensable in nurturing, which requires patience, time, and dedication. Nurturing is mainly accomplished through breastfeeding, comforting, rocking, and gently talking or singing, achieved without fuss and bother, with time and shared comfort. This mothering role is natural, considerate, and compassionate. It is an emotional and basic requirement of a child's development, and helps shape future responses and well-being. This close period lasts until the child starts school, which is a loose period between the years of 3 to 5, depending on the individual. The point may be decided by the local school authority, the number of school places available, and, to a degree, parental choice, the ability to pay the school fee. It's recommended that the child in an introductory class should have a shorter school day, with frequent breaks and a middle rest period, for the first year at least. Working mothers. It's perfectly clear that women in the workplace are essential. Society requires it, during moments of national crisis in particular. Since that time, women have created for themselves a position of power. It was ever clear that this would cause distress, not by only soaking up the number of workplaces that men and boys had previously filled, but their absence from the home would disrupt the even tenor of life there. There seems to be little point explaining why this is so, or the effects that this was going to have on society. It is, as they say, a done deal. Society cannot have it both ways. Women have forever compared their life with those of their husbands and children. They have seen the immediate rewards working for a living has given, the leisure activities, the personal possessions, and the freedom. They're not going to give them up. They would rather have their children later, not have so many, and pass their children's care on to somebody else, even when it's demonstrated that this is detrimental. The power that women have will change society yet again. Governments will pander to their needs by forcing businesses to provide better kindergarten facilities, days off for sick child leave, and flexi working hours paid for home help, home places work, workplace facilities to look after their sick children, job sharing, and their days off paid work in full. If this continues, they will force businesses to limit the number of work positions available to women.